Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. The rivalry between Pep and Klopp was renewed in the Community Shield at Wembley. Both teams were looking to secure some silverware, but in the end, the 90 minutes ended in a draw, with City winning on penalties. Now, let's dig into the tactics both teams used. And if you noticed any other elements, feel free to drop them below, because I'm always curious to see your take on a match. But just quickly, if you're new around here and want to see more football videos, go ahead and hit subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, a like would be great. Feel free to drop video suggestions below as well. Now, let's get into it. We'll start with the lineups. And a good place to look at lineups, tactics and stats, as well as breaking news about your club, is today's video sponsor, OneFootball. It's a completely free app that will give you your dose of all things football. So, if you want to get the app, just click the link in the description below. City lined up in a 4-3-3, but Sane was injured early on, with Jesus coming on as a replacement. Liverpool also stuck to their trusty 4-3-3, with their main missing man being Mane. We'll start with what City did when they were in possession. Just as with Dortmund yesterday, City took advantage of the new goal kick law when building up from a goal kick. Usually, one of the defensive midfielders would drop between the centre-backs, and with the keeper isolated, it would mean they only had one real line of build-up, as the goalkeeper can be marked by one man, or if the centre-backs went wide, the second line would only have one defensive midfielder. But this time, Pep would drop Otamendi deep, with Stones moving higher to be in line with Rodri. The closer man creates a second option for the keeper, which therefore creates two deep lines of build-up, so if a team wants to press, they have to commit more men, because at the same time, the City fullbacks would be high and wide. At times, Liverpool did choose to press in this phase, so they would commit numbers, and Bravo would have two options during this phase. As the Liverpool midfield pushed up, the Liverpool defense could move up as well to try compact the space. Bravo would often try to release a City winger into the space behind the fullbacks, and they managed to do this successfully a couple of times. Another key element is the Liverpool high press would leave some space in midfield. So if Liverpool won the long ball, it would put City midfielders in an advantageous position to win the second ball. But if the Liverpool defense were wary of the long ball from Bravo, they may hold off slightly, and this would open the option for Bravo or Otamendi to play it into the free midfielders. Having moved up the pitch, Liverpool defended in a 4-3-3 with a medium press, meaning they would mainly press the City midfield just as they entered their half. City would aim to counter this by leaving several men in between the lines. But if Liverpool were able to win the ball high up, they could attack the space behind the fullbacks. But if they didn't, De Bruyne and Bernardo were key to the attacking phase. Bernardo would stay wide, drawing a fullback, and De Bruyne would occupy the space between the midfielder and the centre-back. If the midfielder overcommitted to getting to De Bruyne, it freed Rodri to dictate, and if the centre-back steps out, there's a potential gap to be exploited by the City forwards. So, effective communication is required for the midfield to shift across, but David Silva took up a similar position on the opposite side, making Liverpool's right central midfielder hesitant of shifting across too much in case there's a quick switch. This tactic was effective for City, as Jesus would occupy the centre-back, and De Bruyne would make a run that Bernardo would feed and allow the cross from De Bruyne. Liverpool did defend the near post well though, so no goals came from this. The City system did mean that there was space behind the defenders, and Liverpool consistently looked to expose this through quick transitions. This worked well, especially in the second half, as they were able to get between the lines as the City midfield was high, and once they were between the lines, they would look to feed the forwards. But what did Liverpool look to do during steady build-up? Well, Fabinho was the key element. Being the anchor, they looked to hit him to start the play. But City pressed fairly high in either a 4-4-2 or a 4-1-4-1. They didn't necessarily press intensely, but the main aim was to stop the ball from getting into Fabinho, which they succeeded with at times. But Klopp would counter this by moving Henderson into a double pivot, and he would then become the out ball. It was interesting, especially in the first half, Klopp was conservative with his fullbacks, only allowing one fullback forward at a time or none at all. So, if the midfield was covered, the lack of vertical depth meant sometimes they would get caught in the dreaded U. But they have Van Dijk playing at left centre back, and he has an incredible passing range. So when he was closed down, Salah stayed extremely wide to isolate himself against Zinchenko, and Van Dijk would try find him with a long ball, which happened quite often. In the second half especially, Klopp began to push his fullbacks further forward, and this was especially crucial on the right hand side, as Zinchenko would now be tied up with the Liverpool fullback, which often freed Salah to take shots from the right half space, which he did quite often. In addition, Keita's dynamism meant he could probe the area behind the City press to look for a gap to receive the ball, which he managed to do often, getting in behind City's midfield and advancing into dangerous areas. This was also helped because in the second half, Liverpool generally played with a higher tempo, so they could make this first line-breaking pass quicker. This was also helped because off the ball, they pressed higher, cutting off the space City's midfield had. Especially when Rodri had the ball, they would press his shoulders so he couldn't turn and progress it forward. The goals were both from set pieces, and it's hard to tactically analyze these, but City did have an interesting routine with the free kick takers feigning inactiveness before arriving at the back post and squaring it to Sterling. Overall, just as the scoreline suggests, this was a close match, with both sides having their share of great chances. If this is an indicator, this season should be another close one. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.